Today we're taking a look at the CORSAIR 6500X. This is a large dual chamber enclosure with a lot of glass and a surprising amount of airflow. We can't talk about this case without talking about the Lian Li 011 Vision. Everyone has their take on it these days, this pillarless aquarium style enclosure with a side air intake, and CORSAIR is no exception. The 6500X is listed as a mid-tower dual chamber PC case, though it does have 8 expansion slots. It's available in black or white, and you can even get wood paneling. This light wood color is very nice. But we received the regular white version of the 6500X for our review. And there's also a 6500D airflow version, which has, as you can see, a mesh front panel for a front-mounted intake. But I really don't think it's necessary to get the airflow variant because there is so much ventilation, even in this version with the pillarless glass front corner design. This is a dual chamber design, of course, so you have a separate compartment to put your power supply, storage, and any cable mess that you don't want to be visible from the front. This case is pretty large. Roughly, it is 19.5 inches high by about 19 inches deep and 13 inches wide, if I'm translating correctly for millimeters here. Component clearance will not be an issue with a case of this size. The component chamber is very large. Initial impressions taking this thing out of the box, it feels very well made. It has some weight to it. There was no flexing or bowing. Clearly their quality standards are very high for the construction of this case. The back panel of the case, where your main intake lives, is mesh, and then you also have a mesh panel up top, and then a mesh screen filter at the bottom. The back of the case is fully ventilated as well. And you can see those 8 expansion slots back there. But there is no native support out of the box for vertical GPU, so bear that in mind. It is a $75 accessory from CORSAIR to add vertical GPU support. All right, let's take a tour of the 6500X, beginning with the large component chamber. The primary intake supports up to a 360 millimeter radiator or a 280 if you prefer. And while we have standard grommeted cable openings at the top, the rest of these cable openings on the motherboard tray are open, and you'll notice there's a lot of them. That is because this case supports reverse motherboard connectors, the backside power connectors from companies like MSI and Asus. So if you're considering switching to one of these boards, or you're buying a case with a reverse connector motherboard in mind, the 6500X has you covered. Now looking at the rear chamber, we have a removable mount for the primary intake, making installing radiators and fans a lot easier. Moving to the other side, up top we have this storage cage, which supports 2 3.5-inch drives internally, and then on the outside there are 2 2.5-inch mounts. And down below, we have space for an ATX power supply. This mounts sideways, the fan will face out. I do want to point out that all of the cables and even the connectors for the front panel are white. So everything in this case is white except for the screws, which are black. The glass panels are thick. They're somewhere around 3 to 4 millimeters thick. Large metal tabs click in nicely against the body of the case. The back panel simply slots in along the front side and is very easy to clip into place, and there are also captive screws to secure it. Getting this case ready for a build required very little work. I basically took off the top and rear panels and installed the system. It took almost no time at all, and I didn't even record most of the process, unfortunately. You can see just how massive this case is. This is a full-size ATX motherboard, and there is a ton of room around it. I installed the only white 360 AIO I had on hand, and unfortunately the rest of the build process happened off camera because I didn't record it. But here is the finished build. I think it looks pretty good, and again, very little effort. I think I took about 30 minutes to put this together. Cable management was a non-issue because there's just cavernous amounts of space back there. And the end result is very clean. I'm sure you can do a much better job than I did and go with all white components, but I was happy with the way the system looked. Those build components included an Asus Strix B650A motherboard, a Ryzen 7 7700X CPU, some G-Skill memory, a Tough Gaming RTX 4070 Ti Super, Be Quiet Straight Power 12 power supply, and an Enermax Aqua Fusion ADV 360mm liquid cooler. Using the Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail benchmark in a 20-minute loop at 4K high with no scaling, I had excellent thermals. The CPU and GPU stayed under 60 degrees in a 20-degree room. As to noise, with the SPL meter 18 inches from the front corner of the case, noise levels rose to just 34 dBA under that gaming load. However, when I really pushed things with this Enermax cooler, the fan shot up to 100% and it was 46 dBA. So I recommend a quieter cooler for this case. It's not going to mask any noise. Now, before we talk about value, I just wanted to mention that this is not Corsair's first foray into a case like this. If we go back 5 years to their dual chamber 680X RGB case, we had a similar concept, but with a tempered glass front panel, so you were still dealing with panel gaps for air intake. Go back another 6 years, and they had the Carbide Series Air 540, which was a high airflow concept, but still this cube-like dual chamber enclosure. If you compare it directly to the O11 Vision, this 6500X is a larger case. The O11 Vision is also less expensive. What the 6500X directly competes with is the O11 Dynamic Evo XL. And when Corsair launched this new case, it was $50 less than that very similar offering from Lian Li. Now, Lian Li's response to this level of competition from Corsair is fascinating, because they lowered the price to $219.98, down from $249.99. And there is currently a $20 off promo offer at Newegg to take it down to $199.98, making it 1 penny cheaper than the Corsair 6500X. You just can't make this stuff up. So, in conclusion, the 6500X is, on its own merit, a fantastic case. It's extremely well made. Subjectively, I think it looks fantastic, effortless to build in, and Corsair finally has a direct competitor to the O11 Dynamic, just like everybody else seems to now. And they created a case that is much closer to the Dynamic Evo XL, which is $250, and undercut the price by $50. So a lot of this conclusion was going to be about the value proposition offered by Corsair, but with Lian Li's price drop and current offers out there bringing these two to price parity makes this a much tougher buying decision. Now, the O11 Dynamic Evo XL is slightly larger overall and has larger radiator support as a result. So you have space for up to 420mm radiators instead of 360. But on the other hand, only the Corsair 6500X supports reverse connector motherboards. So if you want to be future-proof, or if you see yourself going down that path in the near future, you'll want to go with the Corsair case. Regardless, if you buy one of these Corsair cases, I think you're going to be very pleased. You have to understand that this is a very high airflow design, so it is not going to mask noise at all. If you have a loud cooler like the one that I installed with the fan spinning at 100%, you're going to hear it. And a case like this demands to be up on a desk, so noise levels will need to be controlled if you care about noise levels. And I think this case earns our coveted gold award. It is awfully similar to the Evo XL, or it would have scored higher. I think if Corsair started shipping this with the vertical GPU mount, then that would just push this over the top and there would be no question as to which one you go with. But for now, the value proposition is not as compelling. I still recommend this case. I don't think you'll be disappointed with it at all. It's a very interesting time to be shopping for a computer case. Competition is heating up and it's not even summer yet, technically. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.